really appreciate that too. Thank you, Dad. And now it is my distinct pleasure to introduce our very own Senior Minister of Unity Across Band, RevRobynPlante.
Thank you. Well, it's great to be with you here on this first Sunday in February. We have Groundhog Day, Super Bowl Sunday. Any football fans in here? Aha! A few. Jim's ready for a touchdown. Well, it's a great day to be here to gather in spiritual community to amplify awareness of the living, loving presence we call God by many names that is right here, right now, active and alive within each person here, in our community, and in our world. So we come here to remember that, don't we? When we leave these doors, we strive to live that out in our world with our families, in our communities, and in each and every situation that shows up. I love this picture, this glamour shot of the earth, right? In the light and emerging from the light. And that's a spiritual vision we can hold for our planet as well. Because we've been talking about new ways of seeing and new perspectives and widening our perspective to see through the lens, that higher vision, so we can be the change we wish to see in the world. So we can be the peace, be the kindness, be the love we wish to see in the world. When we know that intellectual understanding is one thing, and application is another, right? Have you ever had these kinds of conversations? We can get so entrenched in our viewpoint, and it's pretty frustrating, isn't it? Because you just kind of get stuck in that kind of dynamic. And until we're willing to see with new eyes, it can feel like we're stuck in that movie Groundhog Day. Do you remember that? Who's driving? I'm not sure there. Remember that movie where Bill Murray plays this character who's just kind of down on life and things, and he goes to cover, Puxatawny Phil, and he's just kind of this, negative, crusty, attitude. And he gets caught in this time loop of repeating the same negative day over and over and over again until it dawns on him that, he can try something different. And so he starts being kinder. He starts bringing beauty into the world, learning art and all these other things, and realizes he can have a different outcome. So that's a great movie to watch for spiritual lessons. So along the lines of widening our perspective, today we're looking at something I really like. It's called The Three Faces of God, which really is a way to deepen our faith, because it asks us to consider, is your God big enough, or do you let your problems get bigger? Is your God close enough, or do you feel like, you wonder where God went? And is your God you enough? Can you relate? Can you have that sense that you have been divinely created in the image and likeness of God? So these three faces of God fall under our larger umbrella of integral spirituality, a term coined by Ken Wilber, American theologian and mystic. Have any of you heard of Ken Wilber? A few, yeah. And so it's an inclusive approach that takes different perspectives and puts them together to see how we can have an enriched experience, considering all the perspectives. I kind of look at it like a mental casserole. You know, like the macaroni's fine, the cheese is good, the chicken, tofu, okay, those are all good on their own, but when you put them together, wow, you know, something greater and delicious happens. So I'll be sharing these ideas, and also from Paul Smith's book called Integral Christianity, The Spirit's Call to Evolve. That's a good book. So we're going to leave Bill behind here. So we had a taste of the three faces of God with our song today. Thank you, Jack. And the three faces of God are really three ways that we can see ourselves in relationship to God. The inner God, the infinite God, and the intimate. So the inner God is the I am, the indwelling Christ, the higher self, divine nature, God within. The second is the intimate face of God, seeing God as beloved and the I-thou relationship, that transcendent God beyond ourselves. And it's also seeing God in others too, other people. The infinite face of God is seeing God in all of creation, in the great mystery, as the great net connecting all, the infinite. So think about if you grew up, how many of you grew up in a traditional kind of religious setting? So most likely, one of these faces, or maybe two, were emphasized and the other was rejected. You think that's true? Like there was a correct way to view God. So the integral view points out that no one perspective has the whole truth. And when we can entertain these other perspectives of God, we have a richer experience of God. So we all want a richer experience with the divine, right? And a more satisfying experience of life. So I invite you just to try these ideas on for the next 3 weeks. And maybe you already do this intuitively. So just see what it has for you, the gifts it has for you to take you a little deeper in each of these perspectives in your relationship with the divine. That's my invitation for us. So today we begin with the inner God, as we mentioned. And this is the one that unity favors the most, isn't it? Thinking, speaking, and praying affirmatively from the I am, claiming our divinity. I am whole, I am life, I am prosperity, I am health. And this is the perspective that can be the most shocking if you are new to unity. Well, did that happen for anybody else? It was shocking to me. You know, I thought, what? Me? God's in me too? Me, divine? I'm not a miserable sinner after all. I'm born with sacred worth. What? It sounds like heresy. It was really, new for me to even consider that. And maybe it was for you too when you were new, hearing these ideas for the first time. But to the heart that is seeking and the mind that knows, it can feel like a homecoming. Can't it? Yeah, feel like a homecoming. Coming home to the core of your being. So God within, the Christ self we call it, the true self, the sacred self, many names for it. But it's pure consciousness, and it's a state of being and knowing yourself as divinely created. Many facets to this, God within. Charles Fillmore, co-founder of Unity, spoke about 12 of them that we have, the 12 spiritual powers. How many are familiar with those? Yeah, that we have the ability to call forth these God qualities into expression. And if you think of it like, there's water, and then water can become ice, it can become steam. There's many ways that the same element can show up. And we have these spiritual facets like that with this inner God, inner divinity. So the energy that creates worlds lives in you. And when we can learn how to work with it, be with it, co-create with it, wow, that's heady stuff, isn't it? And this was the hardest thing for me when I was new to Unity, to embrace this aspect of God. Because I was raised in a God out there only religion. And I really had to work at the God in here. And I thought, I was a little afraid. There's a lot of power in this. I thought, when I get in trouble, would God get mad? And you have those signs at the mall that show you where you're at. So
That's good, yeah.
I don't know, we're in their mind. Someone's idea of a joke. I love that cartoon. So what shifted things for me, and maybe you had a similar experience, is that coming here on Sundays, it started to sink in a little bit more, taking classes, learning about these, my spiritual identity and spiritual law, principles, practices, the accessible God. One thing in the religion I grew up in, we were not encouraged to read the Bible because there were learned people who would interpret it and tell us what it meant. So in Unity, it's all about, this has a personal message for you to give you insight about your spiritual journey. And we'll come back to talk to you about that after. Thanks. So for me, it was showing up on Sundays, taking classes, learning about affirmations, and writing songs that were affirmations. So I'm going to share one with you. I am love, I am loved, I am loving. I am love, I am loved, I am loving. I'm beautiful, capable. I'm God's beloved design. So, thank you. So we have these tools, and song, chant is a way to own that, to claim that inner divinity. So our Unity co-founders, Charles and Myrtle Fillmore, had a relationship with this first face of God, right? They taught about it, about the indwelling Christ within each person, about the I am presence, not I, but the Christ within that does the work. They taught about the practice of denials and affirmations, the power of going into the silence, which is a place of no thought, surrendering to the presence, to the power of God. And they left us many ways to awaken and engage with this inner face of God and live from it. So there's a Unity class next Sunday by Reverend John Washington that I invite you to attend. You'll learn more, to learn more about this. One thing about talking about the three faces, when we talk about oneness, it's all one, that God within, God in others, and God in creation. But we pull it apart to look at the pieces, to try to understand it, have deeper understanding with it. The Fillmores. There's one story in a Unity publication about Myrtle Fillmore's son Lowell tells this story that his mother, Myrtle Fillmore, used to go to her neighbors, and she would work with them like a spiritual coach with affirmations and to get them to claim their identity, divine identity. And he talks about one man that she visited, one neighbor she visited, who was blind and regained his eyesight. And another man who'd been on crutches for years, that put his crutches down and walked. There's power in this. I love this. It's from the very first Daily Word in 1924. To believe in the real presence of God as divine mind in you is to identify yourself with all light and knowledge. Learn to rely upon the light of God within to make clear whatever you wish to know. So whatever question you came in this morning, the question of your heart, rest assured that there is a knower in you that has the answer. There is a divine intelligence in you that can guide you and will guide you and inform you if you're willing to know. And isn't that the key? That we need to be willing to know, because sometimes we don't want to know, because that means we have to do something differently or change something, right? But you have within you your truth that will guide you, that inner aspect. Okay, so there are some cautions with seeing God only as within. Can you guess what they might be? The first one is spiritual arrogance. Identifying with God, this aspect of God from the ego. You know, and that sounds like, I know the answers. And I know your answers too. And it can show up as, I'm right, this is the right way to pray, this is the right way to do this. And there's a term for it. We've used metaphysical malpractice. So I think there's a comedian that makes little skits out of it. He has long red hair, you know what I'm talking about? Kind of pokes fun at this. But spiritual arrogance is a caution with this. And I like how Emily Cady, in her book Lessons in Truth, she uses a metaphor to clarify things. And she says, one drop of water from the ocean is just as perfect ocean water as the whole body. But no one would mistake that one drop as the entire ocean. Each individual is a manifestation of God. Not God in God's entirety, but God come forth in a different quantity or degree. So we each are individuated expressions of God, of the infinite. So caution of spiritual arrogance. The other caution is spiritual sloth. There's a name for this, actually. It's called acedia. And it was considered to be, it almost got added into the 7 deadly sins by a monk, but it's put out. So the spiritual sloth sounds like, I've been in Unity 20 years. I've taken every class. I've seen it all. I've read every book. I've done it all. I don't even need to meditate or pray anymore because now it's just automatic, And, has it really been 20 years of transformation? Because we know when we take these principles and we use them, there's transformation, right? Has it been 20 years or has it been 1 year 20 times? So God is dynamic in you. God God is not static. God is dynamic, always moving in us to express more of those God qualities, more love, more peace, more understanding, more faith, more strength, more divine intelligence. And the third caution is to remember that you have a body. Take care of it. Instead of thinking, oh, I'm just spirit, I just, ignore my body. Which I've seen some people do. But remember, you have a body. Take care of it, because the light of the world needs a lighthouse in this dimension, in this planet, to shine, right? So we know that Jesus had a relationship with the first face of God. He spoke from his true divine nature as the inner God. I am the light of the world. I am the way, the truth, and the life. Whoever has seen me has seen God. And he reminded others of their inner God too, quoting scripture from Genesis. Is it not written in your law, I have said you are gods? Jesus told us that when our faith is strong and belief in our inner divinity as well, that we can do what he can do and more. Have you ever wondered what the and more is? This from Paul Smith. Why be a Christian when you can be a Christ? So this week, I invite you to get to know your inner divinity more, your inner God more, to spend time with it, to notice when do you sense it, and how does it show up? Does it show up through your five senses? And just to linger there when you notice it more, to get curious. So we end with this prayer. Lord, please help me to accept the truth about myself, no matter how beautiful it is. Amen.